growing zones. What are they and how can this information help you in your garden? Let's get into it. I have growing zone information over on my blog at wildandfreefarm.com, and that post goes over everything you could possibly need to know about growing zones. But I recently posted a TikTok and briefly mentioned in there how your growing zone doesn't matter when it comes to what seeds you're starting and when. Some of the comments I got on there made me realize that there's a need for people to know this information because it's been told wrong. Truth is, your gardening zone doesn't matter when it comes to what seeds you're starting and when you're going to start them for the gardening year. The comments didn't reflect this knowledge, so I figured it was important to kind of let everyone know, especially new gardeners out there. Here in the United States, and there's also a different version for Canada, the USDA created zones. They separated the United States by 13 main zones that are divided by 10-degree Fahrenheit increments. This is where your 1 through 13 number comes from. Then they further subdivided it into 5-degree Fahrenheit zones, and this is where your A and your B comes from. Keep in mind that these are just an average low temperature, so your temperature could range above or below that line, and you may need to have a little bit of extra protection for some of your plants. They divided it this way because it was important for growers to know what their average minimal temperature is in order to keep perennials alive. There are certain plants and certain varieties of plants that can only take temperatures that go so low, and there are also some that need a certain amount of chill hours, as they call them, in order to thrive and fruit properly. This essentially is why your growing zone is so important. However, when you begin to plan for planting your annuals, or if you're just an annual gardener, growing zone doesn't matter for you. There are some states within the United States that are divided into multiple growing zones. So even if you're listening to someone who says, oh, plant this if you're in Michigan, you may be in a different part of Michigan than that content creator. On the other hand, it's also not good to listen to someone who tells you when to start plants based off of being in a certain growing zone. There is a town in Idaho called Athol, and it is growing in growing zone 6B, which is what I am here in south central Missouri. However, their last frost date falls around May 28th. My last frost date is around April 20th. So if I were to listen to that content creator and plant my plants according to when they are starting theirs, I would lose almost 10 weeks of my growing season. The only time your growing zone matters in the case of annuals is when that annual is actually a perennial in certain zones. For example, peppers are actually perennials. Ashwagandha is another one that is an annual and a perennial. It requires very hot and dry conditions. It is grown as a perennial in zones 7 through 12, but as an annual in zones 4 through 8. As a new gardener, I didn't know this. I planted them here in zone 6B and was expecting them to come up the following year. When my plant didn't come back the following year, I did some research, and to my surprise, it's not a perennial in my area. It's super easy to find out what growing zone you're in. All you have to do is go on to the USDA website, type in your zip code, and it'll pull up for you. There's also a couple of other sites that are good resources where all you have to do is put in your zip code and it'll tell you what growing zone you're in. I've got some of those links on that blog post I mentioned in the beginning. If you're someone who's just learning and you find someone who says, if you're in zone this, you need to be starting this, just know that that's bad advice and you still need to do your research on your estimated last frost date. The only time that I follow or take advice from people that use growing zone in any sentence is if I'm wondering how to care, prune, plant varieties of my perennials such as blueberries, fruit trees, raspberries. Information about that kind of stuff I want to know from someone who's in the same growing zone as me. Gardening is not that difficult, so don't make it that way by trying to start your seeds 5 weeks before you're supposed to. Hit that follow button for more gardening content, and head on over to our TikTok to know when I'm starting seeds based on my growing zone 6B. I'm kidding. That's a joke. Don't listen to that. I mean, you can go over to our TikTok because I will drop when I start seeds. I'm going to do properly how many weeks until my last frost date. type of thing. Just, yeah. Thanks.